In this video, we're going to talk about time. And we're going to have a look at certain expressions that we use with the word time. Let's start off with the two top ones, or what we're going to have a look at shortly. We've got all time and all time. Why is this one underlined? And why have I got it written twice? Well, the reason why is because all time with a hyphen means it's an adjective. And all time without the hyphen is a noun phrase. So we're going to have a look at some examples and I'll explain it to you very shortly. So after we've looked at those two, then we'll have a look at all times. Wow, at all times. Yep, we use it with preposition at all times, most often. Then we're going to look at all the time. All the time. I video all the time. So we'll have a look at some examples for all the time. And lastly, all the times. Oh, does that make sense? That sounds so strange. But in actual fact, we can say it and we do use it in certain circumstances. So let's kick off and have a look at all time and all time. Let's start off with talking about all time. And we're going to look at all time as an adjective and all time as a noun phrase. So here it is as an adjective. What does all time mean, actually? Well, let's look at the first example. Mary's profits are at an all-time high. And what this means is that high here is a noun. Mary, which is the subject of the sentence, she has a business. And her business has, say it's been operating for maybe 5 years or so. She sells biscuits. Wow. So now this says that her profits, she's making lots of money. And she's making lots of money now. She has never made this much money. So her business is at an all-time high. She's making lots and lots of money. Number 2, the team achieved an all-time win. We've got a cricket team and they do pretty well. And maybe they've been playing for at least 5 years. But now they're winning all the time. They're doing better than any time that they've been together. And so this means that they're achieving all the time. So they're at an all-time win. They've achieved an all-time win. So they've just won and they've never been able to win like this before. Number 3, the Brady Bunch. You probably don't know it. But the Brady Bunch was a fabulous show in the 70s. So the Brady Bunch was an all-time television series. I'd probably say the Brady Bunch was an all-time favourite television series. You could. But what this means is that this was a very popular TV show in the 70s. And it was probably one of the most successful. And that's what this sentence means. So the Brady Bunch was an all-time television series. Now, let's have a look at all time without a hyphen. This is a noun phrase. And as I mentioned before, it has to have a noun, time, and an adjective, all. So let's have a look at this because it usually has of that precedes it. So Mrs. Doubtfire. Fabulous, fabulous movie. Mrs. Doubtfire is one of the funniest movies of all time. And all time here simply means that it would have to be one of the funniest movies of all of the time ever. Big claim, but it could be true. Fabulous movie. Number 2, Patrick got the worst science mark of all time. So that simply means that Patrick has been studying science at school for probably a couple of years. And out of all of his tests, out of all of his science exams that he has done, this was the worst. the worst mark he got of all time in his little sphere. 3, the biggest question of all time would have to be, why are we here? Maybe. So what that simply says is that this question, why are we here? Why do we exist? Good question. That would have to be probably the world's biggest question, the biggest question of all time ever. And so there are some examples to explain all time as the adjective and all time as a noun phrase. Moving right along, let's have a look at the next one. At all times. Now, what does at all times mean? That simply means that we do something all the time, usually with no break in between, but only for the thing that we're told that we should be doing at all times. So, for example, and we usually use it with at all times. Let's have a look at these examples. Number 1, keep your ticket on you at all times. We're about to fly off. We're at the airport and we're told to keep our tickets on us at all times. In other words, don't leave your ticket lying around anywhere. Don't put it in your luggage. Keep it in your pocket. Number 2, you've just opened a jar of mayonnaise and the label says, when opened, store in the refrigerator at all times. In other words, don't leave the mayonnaise in the cupboard and don't leave it out for any long period of time. Only when you use it, put it back in the fridge. So, the break here, we mean no break. In other words, don't just leave it on the table for any particular long period of time. 3, children must be accompanied on the premises at all times. Accompanied. What does that mean? To accompany. It means that children must be with their parents or an adult. So who are the children with? They must be accompanied. So they must be with adults. So children must be accompanied on the premises. What does premises mean? Premises are property at someone's property when you're inside or on the property, on the premises. Maybe it's a swimming pool, a public pool. So children must be accompanied on the premises at all times. In other words, never without an adult. And lastly, number 4, staff should use amenities on level 5 at all times. Now, amenities. The washroom, the ladies, or the men's as we call it here in Australia. Staff should use amenities on level 5 at all times. Now, obviously, when we say no break, what that means is that you're not allowed to use the amenities on level 2 or on level 1. So never break that rule. Staff should use amenities on level 5 at all times. And there you have it. Some examples for using at all times. Oh, I love apples. I'm eating an apple. I eat apples all the time. Do you like apples? Not bad. So we're going to talk about all the time. And simply all the time just means that we do things frequently. So this is with a break. So obviously we're not going to do things 24 hours around the clock. But let's have a look at some examples. So, I eat apples, yum, all the time. But I don't eat apples all day, every day. It just simply means that I like to eat them again and again, all the time. Number 2, Jane practices yoga all the time. So she likes to do it regularly. Number 3, Penny shops at Kmart all the time. So she doesn't shop 24/7, but when she goes shopping, she often goes to Kmart. So she's been going to Kmart for the last 10 years and she shops all the time. And she'll probably continue to shop at Kmart. And lastly, number 4, Harry jokes all the time. So he likes to tell jokes. It doesn't mean he tells them all day, every single minute, but he does it all the time on a regular basis, frequently, a lot. And that's when we use all the time. Very common phrase. So lastly, let's look at the last one. Lucky last, let's have a look at all the times. Now, this is a phrase that is not commonly used. You're not going to hear this very often, but it is used. And what it simply means is the number of whatever, X. So whatever the times will refer to. So we might be remembering a number of events that happened. So even though time is uncountable, you can still count the number of times that you have done a particular activity, for example. Let's have a look at some of these examples. Number 1, here is a log of all the times that Ben was late. Now, Ben gets to work and he's late. And he has been late on many occasions. So you can count the number of times he has been late. But we simply say, here is a log. A log is a journal, a book where you actually record things that you observe. So here is a log of all of the times, or all the times that Ben was late. So it's all of the times. In other words, he was late last week, the week before, he was late 3 times 3 weeks ago. So you're counting all of the times that he was late. 2, of all the times you've been late, naughty Ben, today is the worst. So in other words, for every day, every week, every month that he has been late, today he was the latest. So he probably arrived even later than other times where he has been late. Number 3, all the times I had with my grandmother will be remembered. So that simply means that maybe your grandmother isn't alive anymore and you're thinking about all of the times that you had together with her. 4, Barry loved all the times he spent in Rome. Now, we could simply say Barry loved all of his trips to Rome. That's great, but what we're actually counting is the time that he spent. It's just a colloquial way, really, of saying that, of saying Barry loved all of his trips to Rome. So instead, we just simply say Barry loved all the times he spent in Rome. And lastly, I will always cherish all the times we had together. And that's quite a common common saying if you need to say this sentence. So, yeah, this one is probably the least used out of all of those 4 that we've talked about. However, it's still good to know. Very good if you're writing a story. And there we have it. So that's pretty much it in terms of talking about certain phrases when we talk about time. Let's just do a quick summary now. So we talked about all time and all time. So remembering that all time with a hyphen is an adjective. I'm on an all-time high. And all time is a noun phrase. Time is the noun, and all in this phrase is an adjective. Number 2, at all times. So we use at all times when we talk about things that are constant. Don't break the rules, basically. So that's when we use at all times. All the time means frequent, but with breaks. I shop at Coles all the time. I do it frequently, regularly, but I don't do it 24 hours a day. And lastly, all the times. So what we're counting here is the plural form of the times that you've spent doing some sort of an activity. And there you have it. So I hope you've enjoyed this quick video on certain phrases we use with time. I'm Larissa. Bye for now.